Good evening. The Ranter is back to go into yet another rambling diatribe of the news of the day. You would think I would probably wait till like a week from now to do another one of these. But no. And the topic is going to be the same as the last topic. They'll talk about the fate and the continual story of Abrego Garcia. And not just him. See, I'm trying to contain myself here. Because I am, as an American who studied civics, as an American who studies American history, who fancies myself as someone who understands the concepts of our government and the rules and the laws and what we are supposed to adhere to, not only as people who trust in these laws and respect these laws, but understand that these laws are the makeup of our country that had set us apart from the other countries at the time of our inception after the Revolution, when we devised of the 10 stipulations of our Bill of Rights into the Constitution of the United States, which led up to our first president, George Washington. Trying to figure out how to piece this together, because there's a few things I was going to read. First, I'm still trying to maintain myself. So, Senator Chris Van Hollen of Maryland made it public that he was going to go down to El Salvador so that he would have a conversation and or see if he can try to get Abrego Garcia out of El Salvador. If he couldn't get him out, then at least have a conversation with him. So he made it very public, so much so that the White House, response was to ridicule him for doing so. Chris Van Hollen flies down to El Salvador, goes to this prison, and they refuse his entrance. They denied him to see Mr. Garcia, though they did say that he was alive. So good. Accompanying him was the Vice President of El Salvador, to which when our Senator Chris Van Hollen was unable to see Mr. Garcia, and he asked the VP upon the process of sending him back to the United States. The Vice President of El Salvador said that it's not the responsibility of El Salvador, that Mr. Garcia staying in this prison is entirely the purview and the responsibility of the Trump administration. Now, one of the excuses that was given to us by Trump, by Pam Bondi, when they had the president of El Salvador there with him, was that they couldn't bring back Mr. Garcia because they're outside of our jurisdiction. We can't send him. We can ask, but he said no. He said no. He wasn't going to smuggle this terrorist back into the United States. They made a joke out of it. Joke of somebody who was sent to this prison wrongfully. It's funny, right? It's funny. But I digress. And yet this Vice President of El Salvador contradicted the words of Pam Bondi and President Trump, saying that we couldn't do it because it was in El Salvador and it was under jurisdiction of El Salvador. We can't do it. Evidently, this Vice President of El Salvador said this is entirely the responsibility and purview of the Trump administration. They're calling the shots to send him there. So they could bring him back. And as I saw what other people were reporting on this, the laughable and messed up argument made by the president of El Salvador about smuggling him back in. It's not smuggling. If our Supreme Court 9-0 says for this Trump administration to effectuate and facilitate the return of Mr. Garcia, this is not an under-the-table thing. You don't have to smuggle anyone. If you all kept the paperwork, you would know where people were registered, where they were sent to, so you could just go, hey, let's look up the information, find him, oh, there he is, and get him. But we can't do that. Today, Press Secretary Barbie, Carrie-Ann Levitt, did a fucking disgusting act here. Today, in this White House press briefing, she brought out Patty Merlin, who is the mother of Rachel Merlin, who was killed by an illegal immigrant. Patty spoke in detail upon the circumstances of her daughter's death and her opinions on illegal immigrants that commit crimes and so forth. All the while, as a backdrop, Carrie-Ann Levitt used this as basically a justification of not bringing back Mr. Garcia and continued to push the bullshit of him being an MS-13 member without any evidence, bringing up that his wife, Mr. Garcia's wife, in 2021 filed a restraining order on him, despite the fact that that didn't go through because she didn't show up in court. And despite that, Mrs. Garcia, his wife, the mother of his children, only yesterday spoke out in support of her husband and wanting her husband to come home, wanting to see her husband, wanting to make sure that her husband was still alive. Yeah. This disgusting act. But then when she was done with that, and when Miss Merlin was done with her part in this, Carrie-Ann Levitt asked if there's any questions. People were raising their hands, saying they have a question. He says, nope. And she walked out. She refused to take questions, even though she asked. She just wanted Miss Merlin there to tell her story, her horrific story about the death of her daughter. So that could be in the minds of the press. So they should feel ashamed. And the Democrats should feel ashamed, and anyone with a conscience should feel ashamed for wanting Mr. Garcia back. Even though Mr. Abrego Garcia had nothing to do with Rachel's death. That the only connecting fact of this is that Mr. Garcia was an illegal immigrant. That's the only connecting fact. So let's play a little analogy game, shall we? Let's play a little analogy game. Let's say the cops... Oh, I don't know. Let's pick a demographic at random. Let's say a cop or cops was out in the street and they picked up a black man and arrested the black man in front of his child. Took him away, giving him just a few minutes of time to make sure his child would be picked up by his mother or friends or whatever, right? Wrongfully picked up, wrongfully detained. It is known that is wrongfully detained, that he is being wrongfully detained. It is known. But instead of releasing him because they wrongfully detained him, they elaborate without evidence of crimes that this black man had made or had done. without any evidence, just saying it. Okay? And then, let's say the police spokeswoman brings out the mother of someone who had died at the hands of a criminal who was black. And that person told their horrific story of what happened to their child. And then they leave, and then they walk away without any questions from the press on this. Geez, is that supposed to paint the picture that pretty much every black man, including the black man that has nothing to do with this hypothetical situation, with this hypothetical person, might be looked on as potentially a criminal in of themselves, just from the association of the skin pigmentation in this analogy? Because that analogy that I just elucidated for you is not all that dissimilar to the idea of associating what happened to Rachel being killed by an illegal immigrant, Mr. Abrego Garcia, who is an illegal immigrant, but is, as far as we know, since no one's giving us evidence, but they're telling us shit, the only thing that he's been accused of, or he went to court for, was a traffic violation. The last video I said that it was a gun charge. I made a correction. It was not. It was a traffic violation. But obviously that is worthy of going to a gulag. Fucking hell. So Chris Van Hollen was denied even seeing him. Boy, that echoes back to memories of the last Trump administration when, like I said in the last time, we were just holding people separated, child from parent or adult, and separated and putting them in different places. And then when we put them in different places, we didn't want anyone to talk to them. No, and I mean us, meaning the federal government, meaning us, the United States people, under Donald Trump's administration. So the royal us. Yeah, we, as United States citizens of this country, we did not want these people who were detained to have the access to talk to family, to talk to the press, to talk to lawyers, or to talk to clergy. Even priests were denied to see them. So that harkens this back to where we are now. Where Chris Van Hollen could not even see this man. And the few glimpses of those prisoners that was sent to this prison that we heard tales of, like the gay hairdresser who cried as they were beating him, laughing at it. And he had a tattoo of, I believe he was the one with the tattoo that was representing of his 15-year-old brother's autism. But somehow that was a gang tat. Fuck you. Fuck you, Blue. Now, I said in the last video, one of the things that was pissing me off, and it's continuing to piss me off and made me pissed off even more, is that I talked about the possibilities of how many other people like Mr. Garcia is being sent to this prison, and the circumstances of them being sent there. We have another one. We have another one that was picked up in February. That evidently the news cycle hasn't picked up just yet, or if it hasn't, has glossed over it because of all the other horrific things this Trump administration has done concerning tariffs, concerning our foreign policies with our allies that we consider as enemies, or the fever pipe dreams of making Canada the 51st state, or seizing Greenland. You know, remember, you're flooding the zone. They're flooding the zone to this bullshit, so it's very hard to keep up. So, but maybe all that shit is to mask the horrificness of what's going on right here, right now. So I'm going to read you some more of this. This is from the Rolling Stones. Trump administration deports teen with no criminal record to El Salvador. Manuel Gutierrez's father said ICE agents knew his son was not the target, but arrested him anyway. Wilmer Gutierrez last saw his son the morning of February 24th. Later that day, his nephew called to tell him that the 19-year-old Manuel Gutierrez had been arrested just steps from their shared apartment in the Bronx. Quote, the officers grabbed him and two other boys right at the entrance of our building, unquote, he recalled. One said, no, he's not the one, like they were looking for someone else. But the other said, take him anyway. Manuel was among the 238 Venezuelan deported to El Salvador under the Alien Enemies Act of 1798, according to documented in newsroom reporting on immigrant communities in New York City. He has no criminal record, neither in Venezuela or in the United States, per the outlet, and does not have any tattoos, which is one of the criteria ICE officers use to claim migrants are members of the Tres de Agua gang. William Pera, an attorney at Immigration a la Dia, pardon me if I butchered the pronunciation, guys and gals, the law firm representing his case says Manuel's detention was unjustified and he has an immigration court case pending with his father and was taken the proper steps to formalize the situation. Manuel was detained, this in the quotations, for hanging out with friends and was at the wrong place at the wrong time. ICE was not looking for him, nor is there any evidence whatsoever that Manuel was in any gang, says Perro. The father and son arrived in the United States in 2023 along with Manuel's grandfather and cousin. The family had fled Nicolas Maduro's, pardon me for the pronunciation guns, dictatorship and came to America in hopes of an economic stability before he was arrested. Manuel received his immigration papers and had a court date scheduled for February 2027. Wilmer has struggled to understand why his teenage son was sent to El Salvador's Terrorism Confinement Center, CECOT, a mega prison tied to allegations of human rights abuses. Quote, I feel my son was kidnapped, said Wilmer. I've spent countless hours searching for him, going from one precinct to another, speaking with numerous people who kept referring me elsewhere. Yet, after all this, no one has given me any information or provided a single document about his case. I could have understood if he had been sent back to Venezuela, he said, but why to a foreign country he's never even been to? CBS 60 Minutes released a report finding that 75% of the Venezuelans, 179 men, deported by the Trump administration in March had no apparent criminal records. The migrants, whom the administration claimed had ties to the Venezuelan Tren de Agua, were sent to El Salvador without any due process. The Department of Homeland Security later admitted it had wrongfully deported Kilmer Abrego Garcia, an innocent man with protective status, to CECOT due to an administrative error. Despite being ordered by the Supreme Court to facilitate Mr. Garcia's return to the United States, the Trump administration has openly disregarded the ruling. On Tuesday, Abrego Garcia's wife, Jennifer Estefania Vasquez Sura, who is an American citizen, pleaded with the Trump administration and El Salvador's President Nayib Bukele to, quote, stop playing political games with the life of Kilmer, unquote. Today is 34 days after his disappearance, and I stand before you filled with a spirit that refuses to bring down, she says before a crowd of reporters and protesters. Enough is enough. My family can't be robbed of another day without seeing Kilmer. The administration has already taken so much from my children, from Kilmer's mother, brothers, sisters, and me. Wow. Boy, that sounds like someone who must be still, reeling at the fact that she didn't get a restraining order on her husband, does it? A 19-year-old with no criminal record, other than the fact of being illegal. Was going through the process of getting his immigration papers. He was going to have a court case. He was doing all the right things. Incidentally, so was Abrigo Garcia, who's been in this country, was in this country for 14 years. He went to immigration services. He also was doing the right things, trying to make it legal for him to be here. No one was hiding. No one was doing gang activities. There was no court cases, no accusations, no arrests involving gangs, involving any type of violence. Mr. Garcia's wife's restraining order in 2021, she didn't show up for the case, so that dropped. And to use that the same way as J.D. Vance uses the traffic violation as a excuse to send him away when that was administrative error. This, Mr. Gutierrez, the young Gutierrez, who was sent away, wasn't even the target of the ICE investigation, but they took him anyway. I said it last video, that we look away, we shrug our shoulders in apathy, we give up on even addressing this. Then we allow them, we encourage them, we incite them to continue doing this. And they are. They're continuing. We just read it. People like CNN's token Trump sycophant smirking bullshit artist Scott Jennings would ask, well, if we send him back, we just gonna have to send him else anywhere, right? He's just smirking like a punchable face. I think he does that both for effect, because, why doesn't anyone call him out on his smirking bullshit? Let's do that for effect. But here's the deal. Again, Mr. Garcia's specific immigration orders, or at least from the federal judge's point of view, was that he was not to be deported back to El Salvador. Not only they deported him back to El Salvador, but this man who had no criminal record other than a traffic violation was sent to a mega prison that's supposed to be for violent criminals and terrorists. He's done nothing, neither, that you can prove. You can say, but you can't prove, and you don't want to prove. You don't want to prove. And I'm talking to the Trump administration. They do not want to prove. They don't want to be asked. They were pissed off that they're being asked. Caroline Leavitt, Press Secretary Barbie's whole behavior towards anyone asking these questions, these Democrats, you just don't like the illegals. You like them so much. You like the people that kills and murders and rapes people. Man. Yeah, but Mr. Garcia didn't do any of that. And why this press secretary bullshit that happened today with the poor mother whose daughter was killed by an illegal? To bring her out to tell her story, you made her into a fucking prop. You made her and the memory of her daughter a fucking prop. For no fucking reason. Because Mr. Garcia didn't hurt her daughter. He has no criminal complaint of any violence. All he's ever done that could be considered criminal is a traffic violation. But you lump him in to that, claiming he is MS-13 when there is no evidence presented. Saying it is not evidence. How the press is still in this room and think that they're doing their job, and they're not doing their job. They go in there and they hope to be able to print some news that whatever Caroline Leavitt says will be newsworthy, that they can talk about and so forth. But all she does is lie to them. And we just go into this circle and circle and circle here of just reporting the lies and responding to the lies and reacting to the lies, knowing full well they're lies. But no one follows up. No one says, no, you're wrong. There is no evidence. Why don't you present us evidence? No one puts bass in their voice for fear that they might get insulted by Caroline Levitt, or they might be kicked out of the room and then replaced by some, sycophantic podcaster, or someone with a more friendlier, news organization. I mean, Fox News is even teetering on that edge, because even when Peter Doocy is trying to, even when he's trying to get, he's trying his best. And this is like, when they're asking about, Trump wanting U.S. citizens to be taken to El Salvador, prisoners, and Peter Doocy tries to smirk it off and is like, be sarcastic. Says, he doesn't really mean that, does he? And Karen Levitt says, well, we are looking for it. The president wants us to do it, and so we're looking into it. He just sort of looks down and says, oh shit. He was trying to save you, and you didn't get the fact that you needed saving. This is probably the worst so far of this Trump administration. This is probably why they're throwing up like other things to distract us. Like everything else that we notice of the policies, or what Trump says, or what Trump's cabinet and his sycophants do, it's always this impulsive, childlike energy to it. Just get them out. Get them out. Get them out. I don't care how you do it. Just get them out. Get them out. Get them out by the hundreds, the thousands, the millions. Just get them out. Do they have records? We don't care if they have records. They're just illegal. Get them out. Me. Without, understanding the consequences of the actions. They don't care about the consequences. No consequences. Nope, I'm president. I'm God King. With no consequences of their actions. No understanding of what happens next. Remember a few videos ago, I kind of likened this to the South Park episode about the underpants gnomes. So, once again, to reiterate. Step 1. Without due process, without any recordings, any understanding, anything whatsoever, get out the illegals. Get them out. All of them. All of them. Regardless of what they do, regardless of how many years they've been here, how many children they've had, how long they've been, working part of society that actually, contributes and so forth. Never mind. Get them out. Get them out. Step 2. That would be the consequences of why. But they have no answer to that. Step 3. Profit somehow. No, they don't think about the consequences of their actions. So much so that you actually see evidence of what these deportations have done. Florida is now looking into relaxing those petty child labor laws, to offset the loss of migrant workers. So, outside of getting the prisons to get their chain gangs out, our only legal form of slavery, to get them out into the fields to do the work, let's get the little chilliwhacks, little children, little chillins. Let's get them out in the field. Let's give them the good American work ethic and get them in the field and doing the work, because the people that were working there, that was being productive, working, that was not only making their companies profits, but was probably producing, say, in agriculture and various other services that people with a peachy skin pigmentation wouldn't want to do themselves. They're gone. All of a sudden, there's a little bit of a deficit in the productivity, so let's get the children to do it. There's so many things that are wrong. with this whole thing. And they always want to throw the bone of like, you just want the illegals to all be here. You don't care if they're murderers or rapists or whatever. It's just, and we always have to we have to stop our righteous argument to do the caveat thing, because we can't just blow that over we can't just weather that storm. We have to go, no, it's okay to deport the violent ones. It's okay. Make that into a given. Make that caveat into a given that, yes, if somebody who's illegal commits an illegal act that harms someone, assaults someone, murders someone, rapes someone, steals from someone, then yeah, they get deported. And moreover, if they have such a criminal background, criminal record as long as an arm, yeah, you send them to a prison in that deportation. Not a guy who had a traffic violation, who has no criminal record. If you have to deport someone like that, if you feel so need that you have to deport this illegal, evil person that's done absolutely nothing evil, then yeah, put them on a plane, from the plane, put them on a bus, drive the bus into a town, let them get off the bus, and say good luck. You're deported. I mean, we're not giving a shit, apparently, upon people's lives anyway. At least it's a little better than sending them to a prison. And no one seems to, as much as these people who argues in favor for this, to these happening to these people, they don't seem to have an answer as to why are we sending them, not only deporting them, but deporting them to a place where they're going to a maximum mega prison. And if you have seen the drone pictures of this facility, no, that's not very up-to-date kind of facility. And there has been some people who have done a little investigative reporting inside this particular prison. Whole rooms of 67 to 70 plus people in a single room. That is where they just put them. Inadequate food, inadequate water. And again, subject to the violent whims of their captors, subject to being forced into labors. Folks, we were told during this previous presidential campaign and the election about the horrors of the Biden administration's policies on the border, and I actually agree with some of that, because Biden wasn't doing all that much different than Trump, which was my problem with him, which is why I didn't vote for him in the primary. But people were complaining about coyotes and human traffickers at the border, trafficking people in. Of course, the irony of that, of people on the right complaining about that, certain individuals on the right, remember, I'm not lazy, who then, applaud when they decide to human traffic people from the border to blue states. Oh, that's so funny. You're human trafficking, guys. You're complaining about it, but you're human trafficking people deeper into the country, where you didn't want them to be in the first place. Now they're there. Oh, that owns the lips. Yeah, you human traffic and made more of a humanitarian crisis out of it. Good job. That's what smug, short-sighted, evil fucking people do, right? Well, you see, now I realize something. That human trafficking must be getting a bad rap. Maybe it's not so bad. Why am I saying that? Because apparently apparently, we are paying El Salvador $25,000 a head per year to take people. We are human trafficking these migrants to El Salvador. And given what people in this prison is rumored to be performing slave labor, I guess we're in the slave trade now too, aren't we? Us in the land of the free and the home of the fucking brave, where we had a civil war that ended slavery at the cost of over 500,000 lives. But I guess, well, that's fine. That's fine. It's fine. How's the price of eggs these days? Going down? Going up? Staying the same? It's funny how we have all this economic crisis that we're having in this country. Not only from what's going on with Doge and what's going on with the prices due to the tariffs, but somehow we have the money to pay El Salvador to take our migrants that are illegal. We have the money to try to take Greenland. We have the money to do all these other things except for lowering the cost at the grocery store or ensuring that us folk are still have access to our health care and our insurances. Oh, but this is more important. This is more important. Yeah. And the more, as horrible as all this is, and I think this is still probably the worst of what's happening to these people, is the worst. It's probably the blackest eye that we've done as the United States since slavery, since the genocidal push to the West, how we had killed, displaced Native folk that has been here long before we were here in our righteous manifest destiny. This is up there. This is up there. You know, if it wasn't possible, since these folk who have these machinations are not much of trained folk that wouldn't want to lay track or then, do more railroads and so forth, I guess this spares them the imagery, the historic imagery of sending these migrants on boxcars and train cars and riding the train down to this camp. Oh, excuse me. Mega prison in El Salvador. Pardon me. The cold callousness of this is undeniable. The measure of not giving a fuckness is immense. It's people who are teetering gleefully at what is happening to these people because they've been wanting this to happen for years. And the only thing that's pissing them off is that people are questioning them. They're ruining their fun of rounding up these people, sending them away, black bagging them. Yeah, it's fun. Man, if I had a gray uniform, I could be just like the SS. But again, this is simplistic, childlike thinking. Just send them away. Due process, what's that? Just send them away. Send them away. Don't care about the paperwork. Lose the paperwork. You know, we want to send them away, but we do not want to have the responsibility of anything. We don't want this coming back to haunt us, to bite us in the ass. But the way to things to not have things bite us in the ass, not to have some sort of consequence, is to be responsible. But they don't want to be responsible. Not this administration, and not this government, for which has become sycophants to this administration. Remember, next thing, the next pipe dream is sending U.S. citizens to El Salvador. What is wrong with our prisons again? Like I asked in the last video, big business is prisons. And getting people in, is big business. So, if we're removing our U.S. prisoners and sending them to El Salvador, what are you going to do with that empty space? Is there a plan? Is this going to be a revolving door? Because who else will be filling those prisons? Who will be the next demographic, the next group of people that will be taken onto these flights to El Salvador? Or anywhere else for that matter. See, that's the thing to concern about. That's why you can't look away. That's why you can't stop asking questions. To stand up, to speak out. We look away, and then all of a sudden it will no longer be just migrants. Illegal or otherwise, because there seems to be plenty of people who are in protective status or legal status that is now getting dumped out of this country, who did nothing wrong, but they just were the latest easy victims. Whether you're a gang or not, Venezuelans, Haitians, all gone. Just send them all away. Send them away. Send them away. Because that seems to be the easy answer. But once again, I keep reiterating, the easy answer, that is step one. But step two, they got nothing. They got nothing for the consequences. Like I said with healthcare, step one, rip away the ACA, the Affordable Care Act, Obamacare. Rip it away. Rip it out by the roots. Step two, replacement. They don't have a replacement because they don't want a replacement, because they want to go back to the time where insurance companies had everyone by the balls. Oh, you have a pre-existing condition? Fuck you, you're not getting anything. Take some Robitussin. Yeah, I'm sure that will cure your cancer. Oh, you still want to be insured by us? You want to? Well, you see that you have a really lovely arm and a leg. Let me have that. Then we can keep you on. But oh, you're now stumpy. That's pre-existing condition. Can't cover that. Yeah, so step one, remove. Step two, but the real problem, it's not, and I really shouldn't even term it as the real problem, because the real problem is what's happening to these poor people. But one of the side problems, which is actually is more detrimental, if the Trump administration can flaunt arrogantly to deny the court order from the Supreme Court 9-0 to facilitate and effectuate the return of Mr. Garcia from his bondage in El Salvador, what court case will they ever feel that they need to adhere to? In D.C., a federal court judge has said that there was probable cause to hold the Trump administration in contempt. Think that's going to do anything? any of these lawsuits, any of these court filings that goes against the Trump administration, them trying to stop the flights from going from Venezuela, from people being deported, trying to reverse things around, trying to protect those with protected status to not be sent away. If the Trump administration can say fuck you to the Supreme Court, they can say fuck you to any lower court. And there you have your King Nothing. There you have your God, King Trump. Trump, who was given by the Supreme Court, by the grace of the Supreme Court, the carte blanche, that to make any official acts that he does as president, to have complete immunity to. Does that include contempt citations from not only the lower courts, but the Supreme Court itself? Because we haven't quite heard the Supreme Court's response and reaction to the Trump administration saying, fuck you. What are they going to do? What can they do? If they hold Trump in contempt, what does that do? What does that matter? What does that say? And if he continues to flaunt it, then every other American citizen, are they able to flaunt it whenever they get a court order or summons or a contempt citation? Should they not go, holy shit, and worry about what happens? Or they should just blow it off like they're blowing off, like throwing a parking ticket over their shoulder? Trump administration is showing you that the rule of law of this republic, this democratically elected republic, is meaningless. Once again, the Trump administration has pulled the wool from the eyes of people who had an idealistic vision of the United States, of our rule of law, of our government, of what we can and cannot do. I said this before many times, actually during the first Trump administration, when they would talk about the Emoluments Clause, when they talk about the Logan Act, when they talk about the Hatch Act, how Trump or Trump associate adjacent people would be violating that. And they go, well, you can't do that, they can't do that, and he does it. And what are the consequences? Nothing. Nothing. So in a way, in a very sick, messed up way, the Trump administration, Donald Trump, in his ability to flaunt the rules, shows that there are no rules at all. You know, rules and laws only work if you respect the rules and laws and adhere to them. If you say, fuck it, and you break those laws, or you break those rules, and there's no consequence in doing so, then the rules and the laws don't really matter now, do they? There's so much to talk about, so much to rant about, but this is, as much as I want to rant about like all these other things that are going on, from their hunting down and destroying of anything DEI, to the point where it's not only firing people of a different skin pigmentation or different sexual orientation or different gender identity, but it is then erasing the past of accomplishments from women, from black folk, from Hispanics, from Americans who are not white and not male and not straight, from the history books of these industries like the military or sports. I mean, it's to the point where people are erasing the acknowledgments of dead soldiers in Arlington Cemetery if they happen to be women or black. What the fuck are dead soldiers? Is that too much of a threat to us lily white male folk? But we can't even have mention of it. There's a soldier who was the first woman to achieve success in the training as an Army Ranger. You know, that novel, that first woman to do so, that and that's just going to get wiped away. That accomplishment that should make not only women but men, Americans, proud, will be wiped away, will be scrubbed so that no one ever mentions it, because that might make a little white guy with bone spurs feel bad about himself. You know, I made it as a joke, but I wonder if it's true or not that why Trump did not like the fact that transgender folk were in the military, were volunteered into the military, that trained in the military to potentially be soldiers on the field and on bases or fighting in our wars. Why he doesn't like them? Because Mr. Private No Class Bone Spurs couldn't do it himself, saying he's big, manly, and macho, but these transgender folk seem to do it, so they have to go away because the transgender folk, the trans males and the trans females that are in the military, they got more balls than President Trump. You know, I was wanting to do a video with my friend Vin on this. Or I want to try to do a ranter roundtable and have discussions with the various other people in Middle America. Hopefully I can try to make that work or not. Because I want to have these back and forths. Because as much as I love ranting into the wind, and to you who appreciate me ranting, I wanted to have some interaction. But Vin said no because he's too angry. And I understand that. Because sometimes you can't believe this is happening. This is all bad dream. Especially for those who chalked up the people like me or others in Middle America who are kind of like-minded, who saw this coming, who saw the breadcrumbs of this authoritarianism leading the trail that's connecting the dots. And as much as you don't want to believe it, or you want to chalk us up to being delusional with Trump derangement syndrome, some things you can't deny. When people would laugh off the idea of, of ending the Gaza-Israeli conflict, is that Trump wouldn't advocate the ethnic cleansing of Gaza, of sending all those people away. Yeah, he did. Out of his own fucking mouth, he said that. He was going to end the war in Ukraine from Russia. And if he did that, then he would earn everyone's votes for him, right? No. Because his version of peace is Ukraine to give up, to surrender. That is not negotiation. And then when negotiations were happening, it was happening in Saudi Arabia. It was happening with Russia and the United States, with Ukraine and the EU nowhere near. Talk about all this. We can talk about his first is tariffs, then 2 weeks later, then pause for 2 weeks later, tariffs, pause a month later, now tariffs, pause 3 months later. Kind of detect a pattern there. And the talk of Canada and Greenland and the Panama Canal, and military plans are being drawn up, and all of this is awful. All of this is horrible. All of this is not what we as the United States are supposed to be about. Caroline Leavitt, Press Secretary Barbie, scoffed at the ironic messaging of a French politician talking about that, saying that we should give back the Statue of Liberty. And she mocked it. If it wasn't for us, she would be speaking German. Fuck you, lady. You didn't get the point, Barbie. Is that his point, even though it was ironic, was actually factual. Because we are not living up to the ideals of the Statue of Liberty when it was given to us. We sure are not living up to the poem Maya Angelou wrote. We are not the shining city on the hill. We are the ruins, with the only thing lit up is a casino. I wish I could look away. I wish I could say this is all fucked up, but nothing I can do about it. Move on with my life and don't follow politics and just hope everything works out okay. I can't. Even if I can't do anything about it. I am just a little person. A little middle-aged person just shouting into the wind. The thing is that my shouts into the wind, it's me bearing witness to the fall of the United States as we know it. See, if and when the United States does in fact fall from its grace as being a constitutional democratic republic and morph into some authoritarianism, puppet legislative, but ultimately autocratic leadership, there will be the state story of how it came to be. And it'll probably be a grand story. It'll be great how we decided to surrender all of our rights and trust in whoever comes after Trump. Probably someone related to Trump. That will be the state story. And then there will be the story of the people on the ground. People like me, people like you. If you have an argument about what is happening, make it. If you have the will to stand up and protest, protest. Rally the people around you. Look into the midterms. Try your best to secure the victories of those who would oppose this downfall. And do so. Speak out if you have a voice. As I always say, I'm grateful for those who listen and to watch me rant and prattle on. But this is what I do. I have no influence beyond this point. But even a small whisper can still be heard. When it's all said and done, how many people like me that you find on your streaming sites and YouTubes and so forth saying this, warning you? Being broken heart, having a broken heart of what's happening to our United States. And broken over the loss of the ideals that get stripped away as almost as certainly as our rights are being stripped away. The ranter rants because yours rant is always rising. Even if the tide is too big, stand up. Stand up towards it. Do not look away. If you cannot protest, If you cannot speak up, if you're timid and you don't feel like it, you don't then be a witness. See what's happening. Write it down, catalog it, chronicle it. Leave it for those 10 to 20 to 30 years from now, people who will be looking back at this time and going, how did this happen? How did the United States fall so hard? How did it implode upon itself? And then perhaps they'll discover our words. They'll discover videos like this. Some stray message on a message board, some stray post on a social media. And then they'll get to read, point by point by point by point by point, how the shining city on the hill collapsed and fell. Over the weight of the tyrannical gluttony that we're now suffering under its weight. See you next time. Hopefully not in a few days, but things seem to only get worse now, don't they?